If I tell you God is powerful and I know it, I should be able to demonstrate God's power. So if a man has a challenge, if I know the power of God, I should be able to bring that power on the scene and create a change in his life. There's no point telling people.
Anybody who is truly functional in God's kingdom must of necessity be able to trace moments of the Spirit where he has had personal encounters and personal dealings with God. The proof that you are part of God's kingdom, amongst other things, are the interactions you have with His Spirit. Because the moment you were brought into the kingdom as a child, access was granted you to deep and personal interaction with God. And so we said there is a place of personal dealings with God. And we also said there are times when seasons are opened over God's people, and those who are in alignment are brought into the context of God's dealing with humanity. You know, when the angel appeared to Mary, he made a statement. After hailing her, he said she is highly favored. So God was dealing with many persons in the land, but she was picked out because the time had come for the Messiah to be born, and a virgin was needed to convey him into the earth realm. The name of Mary was not necessarily captured in prophecy, but that was a season. And within the scope of alignment, she came into view, and the angel brought her glad tidings from heaven. And so there are times when there are seasonal dealings of God over territories and over people. And when those seasons come, those who pay the price of alignment and are prophetically situated are captured into God's dealings. And these are the things that separate us into cadres in God's kingdom. We are all children of God, but our dealings with God separate us. Those who are faithful in personal dealings oftentimes are captured in seasonal dealings, what we call kairos moments. And then we said there are dispensational dealings. There are things that are available to humankind because of what God is doing on the face of the earth at that time. For instance, we are in the age of grace. And so anybody who believes in Jesus without doing anything is given salvation. It was not so in time past, but that's a dispensational dealing. That salvation now is free of charge because Jesus paid the price. And so just anybody, a murderer, can receive salvation in a moment without having to pay for that which he has done, because he's in a dispensation. If you were in the days of Moses, it will cost you a lot to even have the opportunity to call God Lord. If you were in the days of Moses, accessing God's presence was available to one person per year, which is the high priest. That dispensation did not warrant such possibility. But in our day and time, it says, come boldly to the throne of grace. So the presence of God is available to us because Jesus has divided the veil. So there are dealings that are dispensational. So in your walk with God, you are going to discover that there are personal things happening between you and God that is not a doctrine. And you are going to discover that there are certain things that happen only in certain seasons. And then you also discover that because of the dispensation that you are in, there are certain things that are available to you that was not available to the dispensation that was before you. All of these things are the dealings of God with man. But we also said there is a more grand dealing of God with humankind as a whole. And we said that dealing is tied to the age of mankind. And we said if you understand that dealing, it will make your life relevant with God, both in time and in eternity. Because as we saw yesterday, there are 5 broad dispensations that God has allocated to the whole of humanity, wherein his dealings are captured. We said the first of that dispensation or age is what the Bible calls eternal past. Because before the first man ever showed up in the studios of eternity, God sat down and curated the destiny of every one of us. So none of us is an accident in God's agenda. The Bible said before you were formed in your mother's womb, Jeremiah 1 verse 5, he said, I knew you and I ordained you a prophet. So our callings and our ordinations did not begin the day we were born. They were written even before we were formed in our mother's womb. All of those operations, we said, they are dealings of God with man in eternal past. So there was a time when all of us were intangible seeds of eternity in the heart of God. And it was in that era that God wrote your destiny. So when you come into time, the possibility of creativity with destiny is not warranted. Because before you came, your destiny was already written. If you miss it, eternity will be a dislocation for you. Because you will not have functioned according to the script of your destiny. It's just like a movie writer plans a movie and allocates character. And then you enter the movie and because you are so creative, you decided to drift from your character and start playing something entirely. You are not part of that movie anymore. Creativity is not permitted because every character was scripted. So there was an age where your destiny was scripted. That was where God began to deal with humanity. It's called ages past. It's called eternal past, or before the ages began. In 1 Corinthians 2:7, if you read in the New King James Version, it said, but we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, the hidden wisdom which God ordained before the ages. Now, this will bring you consolation as a child of God. They may call you a bastard on earth, maybe because they can't trace your father. But in the context of the divine, there are no bastards. Because before you came, he knew, and your destiny was captured. On earth, you may be despised. You may be called a slave. You may be called a stranger, depending on where you are living. That's not part of God's plan. He said before the ages began, something was written for you. And I told us yesterday that 3 things were captured in eternal past before the ages began. I said number 1 is your calling. Jeremiah 1 verse 5. Before you were formed in your mother's womb, he knew you. I said number 2 is glory. Glory was allocated to your life. He said these things were hidden before the foundations of the world for your glory. So you were created to live a glorious life. And then number 3, I read from Ephesians 1 verse 4. I said you were ordained to live holy and blameless. What that means is that you were preordained to live for God. So although your life appears to be your own, your life does not belong to you. That's why you were not consulted before you were brought here, and you will not be consulted before you are taken away. It will be delusion for you to assume your life is your own. The Bible said you are not your own. That time will never come when you belong to yourself. You belong to God. That's how it was ordained. So you came here to live for God. And if you live for God, your life will be full of glory. And if your life is full of glory, you will fulfill your calling. Because before man was created, there was an age called eternity past, before the ages began. There, your ordination was written. And I said, after that age, God now decided to bring man into the earth realm. When man came into the earth realm, the age of man was supposed to begin. But before the project of man's creation was completed, Satan hijacked it, using the will of man. Because when God designed man such that he will function by 3 orders of life. The animal life, which is in the blood, the soulish life, which is the mental life, and the spirit life, which is the God life. In the project of creation, in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, the Bible said God formed the man from the dust. So he created this vessel that is powered by the animal life, or the life of the blood. If you study the Bible in Leviticus chapter 11, you are going to find out the Bible speaking about the life of the blood, of the flesh, is in the blood. So in Genesis 2:7, God formed this container, and the life of the blood was put in it. Then God went further. The Bible said God breathed into his nostrils, and the man became a living soul. So God put the soulish life. So everybody who is a man has a measure of intellect. But the project was not completed, because in Genesis 2:9, God planted the tree of life in the garden for the man to eat, so that his spirit will be animated. Unfortunately, before the man ate of the tree of life, Satan came. Now the soul was active, the will was active, and using the will of the man, it caused the man to rebel against God. So the man rebelled against God, and the man died, because the law that was given is that the day you violate God by eating of of the particular fruit called the tree of death, knowledge of good and evil, you will die. So the man exerted his will, violated God, and died. So the project of man was not completed. Because of that, another law was activated, and God spoke to the man. He said, you will toil, and out of the sweat of thy brow thou shalt eat bread. And so unfortunately, the man had to labor in the flesh to survive, which was not God's original plan, but that was the situation. And so God had activated a protocol of redemption. He wanted to redeem the man so that he can begin his project with man again. And it took several years until Jesus came for that to happen. Now, between the time that man fell and the time that Jesus came, that era was now categorized, and it was called ages past. So there is the before the ages began, then there is the ages past. In fact, Paul speaking about it in Ephesians chapter 3 verse 5. If you read the ESV version, he said this mystery was not made known to the sons of men in other generation, as it has been revealed to the holy prophets and apostles. In Romans 16 verse 5, verse 25, if you read the NIV version, Paul said, the message I proclaim to you about Jesus Christ, in keeping with the revelation of the mysteries hidden in ages past, meaning from the days of Adam up until the coming of Jesus, nobody knew about this mystery. And so that whole era was called ages past. That was the era where man depended on his intelligence and his willpower to get ahead in life. That era, the full essence of God's possibility was not realized in man. So man could not carry the glory of God. In fact, Romans 3:23 said he had sinned and he had fallen from the glory of God. So there is before the ages where your destiny was scripted. Then there was ages past in God's dealing with man, where man tried to do the biddings of God with his human ability, and everyone failed. Then after that age, a present age was activated, where God decided to visit the realm of men so that he could live through men. So in the current age that we are in, we are not to labor by our abilities and our strength. We are to labor by the strength of God on our inside. So Philippians 2:13 said, it is God that worketh in us, both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Paul speaking in Philippians 4:13, he said, I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me. So you see that the era had changed. Before now, man didn't have the vast resources of divinity to explore. He couldn't draw from the realm of God to have an advantage in his realm. He was literally living like an animal, although the highest among animals, but still an animal. But a new age has been instituted where the definition of man is no longer man of man, but man of God. Meaning that in this era, divinity is manifested through humanity. So man can now exhibit capabilities beyond his mental power. God does not expect him to throw his mind away, but God expects him to live beyond the realm of mind if need be, because now he has the vast resources of divinity to tap from. This age is what the Bible calls the age of the kingdom, or the age of grace, the age where God lives out through men. And when you study your Bible, you are going to find that in Colossians chapter 1 verse 26, Paul said, Christ in you is the hope of glory. So this is the age where God lives through men. Paul said, henceforth know we no man after the flesh. So like I teach my people, you can learn, you can study, develop your mind, develop your body, exercise, rest, eat well, go to the gym, go to school, learn all of the science, the physics, the chemistry, learn all of the philosophy you can learn. But remember that when things overwhelm men, there is a higher level. There is the divine level that you can switch into, because it is not science in your mind that is the hope of glory. It is Christ in you that is the hope of glory, because you have come into an age, and that is how God plans to deal with humanity. You know, the problem with this age is that Satan is still at work here, because when he received the Adamic authority, he gave him license to function on the earth. So anybody who does not tap into the plan of God for this age will be a puppet in the hands of Satan. If you study Galatians chapter 1 verse 4, the Bible calls this present age an evil age. So the only way you can realize kingdom in this age is for God to live through you. No matter how vast you are mentally, you will still be a slave of a spirit. So it's your choice either to choose God walking through you to bring out glory, or allow Satan use you to self-destruct, either in this life or in the life that is to come. So there is the before the ages, there is the ages past, and then there is this present age, which is the age of the kingdom. And then when you go beyond this age, you have another age. The Bible calls it the age to come. Matthew 12:32, Jesus said, whoever blasphemes the Holy Spirit, he said, he shall not be forgiven, either in this age or in the age that is to come. If you click the word there, you'll find out that it's talking about age or aeon. So there is an age to come. That age to come is actually the age of the full manifestation of the kingdom. But that age will begin with judgment and reward. So anybody who does not allow God live through him here, when he ends here, he will transit to another world. Because the truth is that you don't die when you leave your body. Nobody will die. All of us will live forever. Because you came from God, you can't die. So when the Bible speaks of death in the eternal context, he's speaking about destination. Whether you end with God or not, that's what the Bible calls death. It is separation. But for those who allow God come into them and live through them here, when they get into the age of the fullness of the kingdom, or the age of reward, they will have a place with God. Because there is before the age where our destinies were written, there is the ages past where man fell and could not walk in glory. Then there is the present age of the kingdom where Christ lives through you as the hope of glory. Then there is the age to come where God will reward you based on what you did in his kingdom for him. And then beyond the age to come, the Bible still speaks of the ages to come, where the whole of God's creation will be gathered together as one assembly. Ephesians 2 verse 7, it said, in the ages to come, God will show his manifold grace towards us in Christ Jesus. So our journey has not ended. We are just in the third age of God's dealing with humanity. The first age, we were not participants. Only God was there. He wrote our destinies. When we came into the first age, God expected us to live out that destiny, but Satan hijacked it. Then we come to this present age where by grace we've been given opportunity to live out that which God has planned. And then there is the age to come where God will reward us based on what we have done in this present age. And then there is the ages to come where our eternal stories will be ended. That will be our state forever and ever. So everybody who is living in this present age must be conscious of the age and the ages to come. Otherwise, his life on earth would be a waste. And so yesterday we began to look at scriptures to find out how to live in this age, to maximize your life as far as God's ordination is concerned. And we said the only way to live in this age, to maximize your existence, is to live in the kingdom. Because God has a kingdom. He is a king. He's not just a father. He is a king. He has a kingdom that he wants to find expression in this realm. And so how to live in this age to maximize your life is for you to be a participator in the kingdom.
If I tell you God is powerful and I know it, I should be able to demonstrate God's power. So if a man has a challenge, if I know the power of God, I should be able to bring that power on the scene and create a change in his life. There's no point telling people